the other programs we have done, this one we're going to start with a simulation mode that's inside the Roboguide. So I have a cell that is just like any other cell. It has an R2000 IC165F robot with no end-of-arm tooling. So the first thing we're going to do is add an end-of-arm tooling. So let's hit the plus next to the R2000 IC and you'll see tooling. Click the tooling and then let's double click uTool number 1. And inside here, this is going to be our tool. So let's go to our CAD library. And let's find end-of-arm tooling. So I'm going to go down to, just hit all the grippers right here, and then scroll down until we find the one that we want. So this one we have a Pro Default vacuum, or this one looks like we have one that's a little bit different than that, is our default vacuum. So I'm going to click the default vacuum, and I'm going to hit apply, which brings it in. There we go. Now we can modify it. So right now this is pretty big suction. So let's change this or modify it just a hair bit. First we're going to go down below and let's do some rotations here. So I'm going to unlock all location values and I'm going to change this to 0 so it's sideways. I'm also going to change the scale so that it is a lot smaller. So I'm going to go maybe 3/4 of the scale. Maybe we go a little bit bigger. Let's go 1. See what that looks like. There we go, that looks a lot better. Then we'll lock all locations, hit apply. Then let's set up the U tool, edit U tool, because right now it is at the top. So let's bring this down. We'll go side first. And we'll bring this up to get it close to where our suction is. And that actually looks pretty good. So we use current, and then I'm going to change this to say 187, and that looks perfect. And it was already centered, so I don't have to worry about the centering of the object. All I had to care about was the Z offset of the actual suction. So I hit OK. So now our U tool is now set up. Alright, so now that we have our U tool set up and our tool set up, now we're going to create a part. So we can either go down to parts, right click on it and go add part, or we can go under cell, add part, and we're going to create a simple box. So let's go box, and then we can call this pickup box or just simple box is fine. Box, let's give it a color, maybe a color of the actual box itself, maybe a brown color. And then let's give it a size. Now right now you'll see, well, where is it? If you zoom out, it's off to the right here, and it'll remain off to the right at all times. So let's give it a weight, so maybe 5 kilograms, and this is meant for adding a payload to your arm so that it can properly calculate speed for movement. Let's set up the actual size, and let's just give it a rough size right now, maybe 200, and we'll make it 200, and then Y will make it a little bit wider. So now that we have a box size, we'll probably modify it a little later just so it fits the end of arm tooling. We're not too concerned about sizes right now. We're going to add this box now to our end of arm tooling. So I'm going to hit OK, and I'm going to go to my end of arm tooling here, and I'm going to click it, the actual end of arm tooling, double click, and we bring up this same exact item we were working on before. Here's our U tool. Now what we're going to do is we're going to go to parts, and inside parts you will now see the configuration called box. Let's check that box and then hit apply, and then you'll see the box show up. And here's an important thing. You have to make sure that the UCS of this matches everything else that we're going to do. So make it a logical thing. So generally make it the top of the box. So it's not always going to be located at the top of the box. You may have to rotate it so that it is. Okay, so I'm going to edit the part offset. Notice how the UCS here is at the bottom of the box. So that was a little deceptive because we were actually seeing the end of arm tooling UCS, but now that we clicked our actual box item, it is upside down. So when we pick this, we have to match this UCS on our conveyor belt. So we're going to rotate this around so that the UCS is at the top of our box. So let's go to the W and change it to 0. There we go. Now we have our Z and our X and our Y. So if we want to rotate this then so that the X is positive going backwards or the Y positive going forwards, then we could do that. But this works for what we're doing right now. Next thing we want to see is we want to bring this up so that it's at the end of arm tooling. So I'm going to bring this up, and a lot of times it'll actually snap once you get close. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't, but then you just zoom into the front view here, and then you do the fine tuning. And then look at the actual number and make it so it makes sense. So I'm going to go -185, and now it's perfect. Okay. So I didn't have to do anything with the X and the Y coordinate. All I had to do with the Z, because everything matches when it's centered. Now if you have a tool that is offset, then you do have to change that. So I'm going to hit apply. So now that it's applied, let's actually modify our box size first before we do anything else. So I'm going to just close out of that. And instead of going over here, I can just easily just double click the box, and it brings up the original features that we did with this size of the box. So I'm going to go Y of 400. Yeah, let's go a little bit more, maybe 450. There we go. And then we'll make the size in the X direction a little bit bigger. I like that. That's about good size. So we'll leave it at that. Let's hit OK. So now notice that box matches as well, because it's the same box. Basically, we're teaching it how to pick up and how to place. Let's go back to the tool, double click the tool, and let's go to simulation. So inside simulation, here's the box. So inside here, this is where we're going to modify if there's any delay of picking up or end of pickup, whether there's a presence to the robot controller, so we can have a robot input of on, and we can set the number if we want to. We can do the graphical user interface as well if we have one, but this right now we're going to leave as OK or done, do a pick, or when we do a place, we will actually do some modifications in the simulation. Later on we'll talk about presence, and when we actually move a box down a conveyor belt, then the presence becomes a little bit more important than just a simple pick and place that we're doing right now. Let's hit OK. Next, let's add a conveyor belt in which we're going to pick up from, and also a pallet in which we're going to place upon. So let's go down to the fixtures, and inside fixtures we can add our item. So we can either right click on it, add fixture, or we can go up to cell, add fixture. It doesn't matter which way we do it. Let's go down to conveyor, and let's pick a conveyor belt that will work for us. I like this one, so I'm going to hit OK. And now I need to place it where it needs to be. So I'm going to bring it down so that it starts going into the ground, and then I can figure out the Z. So Z looks like it's about 700, looks good. And then we do some rotations. And then I'm going to bring it over and then up again. So it's a good idea to figure out where your tool frame is, so where your robot can actually place. So let's go up to show and hide work envelope and go to uTools 0. And this is everywhere that the robot can actually reach. So you want to make sure that your conveyor belt is actually in a place that your robot can actually reach, but not too close to where you start faulting out because of access limits. So I'm going to go maybe something like right there should be good, and then I'm going to make these a nice even number. There we go. So now that I have this in place, I'm going to turn off my uTool, and let's add the palette. So hit OK, and let's go up to cell, add fixture, CAD library, and then we're going to go to palettes and find a palette that you want. So I'm going to pick this plastic palette, bring it down to where we get close to the ground, and then figure out where we need to be from there. Alright, so 130. There we go. And then let's place it off to the side here. Once again, making sure that we're in that uTool frame so that we are able to place it completely onto the palette, every single portion of that palette. And then let's change these to nice numbers. There we go. So now that we have a pallet and we have a conveyor belt, let's now add the box to our conveyor belt and then the box to our actual pallet. So let's go to the conveyor belt, double click it, brings up our menu. So we have our general information, all the things that we modified. Let's lock all locations so we're not able to move this by accident. So I locked it. Then we're going to go to parts, and then here's our box. So let's click box, hit apply, and then you'll see the box show up over here. So then we're going to edit the box and we're going to bring it onto our conveyor belt. Okay, so now how our UCS here matches this is how it's actually going to be picked up. So right now it's going to be rotating this arm so that it comes down and matches the UCS from here to here. And I'll show you in a minute once I get this into place what that means. So I go to the side view so I can get my height correct. 195 looks perfect. And let's go to the side view. And I'm going to get this centered on my conveyor belt as best as possible. So we'll say 260. There we go. And then we'll say 2,100. So let's just make it 2,000. There we go. So we'll say this is where we're going to pick up our box. So now let's look at the actual UCS of these. So if you look up at the box right here, our UCS is X direction going forward here. This is our Y direction. Z is going up. So we want to make sure that our Z is going up on this box as well. So Z is going up, X is going forward. So what's going to happen is this is going to rotate and then it's going to pick up our object and then it's going to come up again. So it needs to rotate its arm to get down to this position right here. So let's add our box now to the pallet. So we double click the pallet and let's click box, hit apply, edit the offset, and we're going to bring it up so it's on top of the box. Make sure the Z is upwards, which it is, matches all the other ones. So Z is up, Z is up. Otherwise it will not pick and it will error out on you. Let's get the height correct. There we go. So we'll say 200. Move it to where it's supposed to be as well. So I'm going to say I'm going to place it along this edge right here, and then our first placement is going to be right here. So let's make this say 325, negative 215. There we go. So that's going to be our first placement of our object. All right, so now basically we have our parts. I'm going to just click the robot here so we're unselected on our objects. So now that we have all three parts, so where it's picking it up, where it's going to be on the tool when it's moving, and then where it's going to place, now we need to do a turn on and turn off when it's actually being picked. So for the actual tool itself, we can click our object and then we can turn off or open and close our object, which disappears. It's still there, but it's not being present right now. Then what we're going to do is we're going to go in our conveyor belt. So double click the conveyor belt and then go to simulation. And then here is where we're going to have our part simulation. Click the box so it's highlighted and we are going to allow to be picked up. So this is not going to be our placement. So let's uncheck place, allow to be picked up, and after it's picked up, how much time until we pick it up again. So we'll say maybe 5 seconds, there'll be another box that shows up. We will work with a little bit more with the presence later on. For this video, again, we're just doing a pick and place. So let's create a presence after 5 seconds, hit apply, and let's hit OK. And then let's go to the palette, double click the palette, and this one, click the box, uncheck pick, and we're going to go to place, and this place is we're going to destroy it after 5 seconds. Now you don't have to destroy it, but again we are just going to do a pick and place, back and forth. If it's going to be stacked or if you have multiple objects, then you do not want to destroy it. So we're going to hit apply and OK. So now that we have these two items allowing to be picked and then recreated after 5 seconds, this one's going to be placed, recreated after 5 seconds. Now we can actually create our simulation. So let's go up to teach, and inside teach we're going to add simulation program, and we're going to call this pick and place. Make sure there's no spaces. There we go, pick and place. Hit OK, and this is going to be a little bit different than the actual teach pendant, but basically the same premise. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to record this as my home position. So I'm going to go record, and I'm going to change this to a joint movement at, we'll say, 100% with no offsets. And then what we're going to do is we're going to come down to our position right here. So instead of trying to locate it and rotate it, this is very easy to actually do. So all we do is double click our conveyor belt, and let's go to parts, and right here is move to, and right now it says end of arm tooling number 1, move to, and then it will go exactly to where it's supposed to be, as long as those UCS's match exactly, so that Z is up, or any other position. They have to match. So what we're going to do is close out of here, and then we're going to record this position. So I'm going to record this as a linear because we're going to record another point in between. So let's record. Linear, we'll say 2000 is perfectly fine. Then what we're going to do is we're going to bring this tool up. So maybe about 500, we'll say, and this is going to be our safe position. So we're going to record, and then we're going to move this up between our home position and this position here. So right here is a up in selected line, brings us to position number 2, and we're going to go from the home position down to that position as a joint movement at 100% speed. Okay, so it goes from our home position to this position, then down, picks up our object, then we're going to come back up again, and we're going to record, and same thing, linear. Then we're going to move to this position. So let's go to double click our palette, and then we're going to go move to. Now we're moved to that position. Let's record. Now that we have it recorded, let's bring this up. Make sure we're picking the right UCS here. Zoom on out. There we go. So that's going to be my safe position, and we're going to record, and we're going to move to this position as a joint movement. Then we're going to move it up in position. There we go. So now let's just run the simulation, just see what it looks like. So we're going to go forward. So this is our home position. Move over, go down, and then back up again. Then it'll go over to the other side, down, and then we need one more to be back up again. So I'm going to actually go to this position, move to, there we go, and then let's go down below and record. So we're at that recording, and then let's move to the home position. So click the home position, move to, and then let's record this at the end. So we're going to record, and let's record this as a joint movement right away so we don't have to change it. So now we're at that joint movement. Okay, so now that we're at that home position, let's just do a dry run here. Nothing's going to be picked up at this present time. We're going to add those items in here in a minute. So I'm going to run cycle. Come down, pick up, over, down, drop, and then back home again. Okay, so now that we have these teached, now let's do the pickup and drop off items. So we're going to do a pickup at point 3. So let's click point 3 and let's go move to. Right here then, we're going to go to instruction and we're going to go pickup. So after joint 3, we come down, we're going to pick up. What we are going to pick up, we're going to pick up the box. We're going to pick it up from the conveyor belt, and then we have with our end of arm tooling. So make sure that all these are filled in when you get to that point. Then once we pick it up, we're going to go to now point 6. So let's go to point 6. Here's point 6. Let's move to, and then we're going to drop off. So let's add instruction, drop, and what are we going to drop? We're going to drop the box from our end of arm tooling onto the pallet. So then let's run this and see how it goes. It picks up, comes down, drops it off. All right, but you'll notice that the palette has still visibility even though we didn't drop it off yet. So let's go into the palette, and inside the palette, under the Parts heading, we're going to go down to Visible at Runtime. So let's uncheck Visible at Runtime, hit Apply, close it out, and nothing will actually show up in the teaching mode, but when we hit our cycle start, you'll notice it disappear. Picking up, going down, dropping it off, and then back home again. So now that we have this, let's actually run this over and over again. Let's just loop this. So I'm going to go down to the final row, and we're going to go to jump label 1. And then up top here, let's add our label 1. And I'm going to move it up so it's in row number 1. So it's going to drop, and then jump to the top, and then start over again. So let's do this again, and we can see our simple pick and place program. There we go. So it's picking and placing after so much time. Now we can change the destroy our object be about the same time as our actual picking place. So let's stop this. Double click our palette, and then we're going to simulation. So right now it's destroy delay is 5 seconds. So maybe let's change it to 3 seconds. And then we can run this. Let's get rid of some of these profiles. Run. So that is a simple pick and place program. Later on in videos, we're going to move the box down the conveyor belt. We'll also be able to stack multiple boxes instead of just one. That's coming up in other videos.